Hello and welcome to another episode of the Resilience Movement. We're here with Nathan Hawken again, all the way from Dublin, and we're talking about developing a relationship with the unconscious mind. So this is episode 4 of 5. Is that right, Nathan? 4 of 5.
I'm not quite sure. I feel like we've done a lot.
We
I think
have.
I've got a feeling it might be 5. No, it is 4. I think
Four
because I
of
think we've.
four of yes, 4 of 5. So this is super exciting. So thanks for tuning in again, and I'll hand it over to Nathan.
Also, thank you, Donna. Always nice to see you, of course. So we've spoken about some big topics before, and I think in a way that kind of lead us to get to a point where we can talk a little bit more about what's actually happening inside someone's head. And when we say developing a relationship with the unconscious mind, and this can be some deep stuff for a few people. And this is actually something that I do for my clients, or I help my clients do as well, because understanding that there's an unconscious inside you and there's also a conscious inside you, it actually helps you to become more whole and complete. And so when we say developing a relationship with the unconscious mind, what we're really talking about is a relationship with yourself. Although I do get a bit reluctant to coin that term on it because there's a lot of stuff out there about developing a relationship with yourself or being your authentic self. And it's more recently, I've started to understand that at a deeper level, but I'm very wary of just lumping this type of thing into like the flavor of the month when it's like, oh, you've got to be your authentic self, right? You got to develop a relationship with yourself. It's like, yes, we know how to kind of regurgitate that when we've heard it from someone else, but what does it actually mean? And that's what we're going to get into today, talking a little bit more about what that actually means and what's going on inside your head, and that there's 3 things there that essentially make up you. And so I wanted to ask you a question actually. What would you say is your unconscious mind, or how would you describe it to someone?
I think when I talk about the unconscious mind, one of the ways in which I describe that is when you are not conscious of your behavior, or you're not conscious of why you're feeling the way you're feeling, like the unconscious mind, I guess I can explain it. Like when you're conscious of something, but when
Mm-hmm.
you're unconscious, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I kind of put you on the spot there, right?
Yeah,
With that,
yeah.
it's like explain this very deep thing. Excuse
Well,
me.
when you were talking about being your authentic self, I mean, I talk a lot about that with my clients, and specifically, I spoke to a client about this 2 weeks ago, where he wasn't being his authentic self, and we used it as like a volume, and he became more conscious of behaviors because he was fairly unconscious of them. But he
Mhm.
he said he wanted to turn his volume up on being his authentic self, so therefore he had to become more conscious of that.
Yeah, and I think that that kind of sums it up, is because your conscious mind that we hear, that we know about, your conscious mind is very like logical. It makes sense of things. It's very reasonable. So as in like it puts reason to things, and it helps you logically understand things like your
Yes,
life. What are you laughing at?
I can hear my grandson screaming with joy.
I love it. Working from home, it's the best.
Yes.
So yeah, your conscious mind is the logical one, and it helps you make sense of things. It's the one that most people tend to listen to more. But the unconscious one, your unconscious mind it's like the crazy one. It's like the crazy aunt that no one ever listens to because she says so many weird and wonderful things, right? But the unconscious mind really is the one that will present ideas to you, and a lot of the time it's like the goal setter, where the conscious mind is the goal getter. So take the example of starting
Ah,
a business.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you've got an idea to start a business, or maybe there's something you like doing, which you've been doing it as a hobby, and you think, I could turn this into a business. Now, for most people, that's a big idea to even grasp. It's like turning something that you're doing now that you like to do into a business that's going to provide you with an income. More importantly, it's like, well, no, that's a lot, because I'm already working, I've already got money coming in, and all these type of comforts which it brings with it. And so your unconscious mind will come up with the idea, will present an idea, and the idea comes from your core values, your core beliefs, like who you truly are at your essence, the things that you really, really want to do, and the person you want to become. And so the idea will come up. And what usually happens is that the idea will come from the unconscious. And we've got, Mel Robbins talks about the 5-second rule, where it's 5 seconds before you start telling yourself why you can't do something, and you don't end up doing it based on the reasons that you present yourself. Well, that's the conscious mind kicking in. Conscious mind, being logical, also wants to protect you and look after you, gives you all the reasons why you're better off not doing that thing, you know, whatever that may be. So starting a business, and I use that one because it's a really good example for a lot of people, and I believe it'd be a good example for a lot of people who are listening. And so the idea to start a business, doing something you actually like to do, your conscious mind will kick in and be like, whoa, wait a minute. Let's just think about this for a second. You've got a job, you've got a steady income. You may have some career progression. You know, we can always make money in the future if we work really hard. That means you'll have to maybe learn something else. You've never been in business before. Business is hard. All these beliefs start coming up as well. And so why don't we just stay here and we'll just do what we're doing? Because that makes logical sense to keep doing.
Comfortable.
And it's comfortable. Are we happy? No, but is happiness really important? No, it's not, particularly when you don't believe that you are. So let's just stay where we are and just keep doing what we're doing. And so that's the almost like the conflict that tends to happen for most people every single day in some form or another. So the unconscious knows who you are, knows what you want, knows what would make you happy. And the conscious mind is the logical one who tries to make sense of everything. And so when I say the conflict comes up, is that it's sad, but most people give their poor unconscious mind a complete battering any time it opens its mouth or it says something. I refer to it as like a third person almost, but remember all these three are the individual, the person. Yeah. And so anytime an idea comes up or it presents something which needs some type of resolution, which we'll talk a little bit about in a sec, we tend not to listen because it is crazy, because the ideas which come up are well beyond our conscious awareness right now. Or if there's something we need to resolve, like a memory comes up which has a negative emotion to it, it can be very difficult to confront that and try and make sense of it. And so we tend to just ignore that talk which comes up and let our conscious mind just work in that logical type of way based on how we see the world and what we've been doing up until that point and things like that. So the unconscious mind is very powerful and it guides you in the right direction. And when we start listening to it and developing a relationship with it, really good things can come from it.
So with the unconscious mind, where does intuition fit in there?
Yeah, so very much intuition. That's one thing I've noticed in like the work that I do as a coach is, so I don't really have notes in front of me anymore. Like I used to have like questions and things like that I'd want to ask. These days I don't have anything because I noticed I was putting my focus, I was letting my conscious mind kick over, thinking my next logical thing to ask would be this, right? Or I should be following a framework or a plan, or I need to make sure I go through this, which is all very logical, like tick the boxes, all those type of things. But when you're doing like coaching, for example, or something that requires you to think, not logically, but kind of in a very different way, you allow your intuition to kick in. And intuition will always guide you in the right direction, always. But how many people listen to their intuition? So yes, your intuition is your unconscious giving you the guidance that you need. The question is, will you listen to it?
I'm getting better.
That's it. Well, that's what it's all about, right?
Do you think that it's easier to be more aligned or use your intuition when you do things such as mindful practices and meditation and things like that? Because you're going like the first episode, like the way out is in, going inward to reach your intuition.
Yeah. So all those things are ways to help develop that relationship. So the more you can go in and allow that part of your mind to kind of unravel, if you will, or just be, the more in tune with yourself you can be. That's why meditation is very much about getting centered, calming your mind, stopping all that chatter and thought, and just really just getting centered with your being and who you are. That's when really significant and profound things can happen during meditation, but not just meditation itself, even journaling and those type of things. Getting those thoughts that come up, thoughts about your day, thoughts about your life, thoughts that you've just had, writing them down is a good way to have that relationship going as well. But more importantly, when we talk about the unconscious and the conscious mind, we remember it's all part of you. And I use you as the universal you.
Yeah.
It's all part of you. And so we talk about these two things as though you're in the middle of them. Well, you have to remember that it's all part of you, and the way that a human being, you, me, anyone else, can operate in the best possible way is to operate as a whole human being, as a whole person. And the way you become whole is by having that relationship with both, understanding that unconscious mind is important and it helps you, it serves you and guides you. And the conscious mind is equally as important because it keeps you out of trouble when you need to. It does keep you safe. It helps you make sense of things in the world around you as well. It also helps you make sense of some of the crazy ideas that the unconscious mind can present to you so you can understand them, right? Because we can only understand what is like what we've experienced already. We can kind of get an idea of what we haven't experienced, but understanding that the conscious mind and unconscious mind working together is how you start to get, how you become whole and how you start to be more on purpose with you and what you want to do.
And what would you say to the listeners who go, how do I, really start to understand myself and my intuition a bit more, like someone, because if we look at today, we are so distracted with stuff. We're distracted with our phones, we're distracted with Netflix or whatever, especially being that we're all home, we've been home for quite some time, working from home. So there can be a lot of distractions. Where does someone start?
Well, the easy answer is just to listen, because the dialogue's there. Just before I answer that, I'll give you an example, because this comes up a lot. It comes up with my coaching clients who aren't in the habit or the process of listening to that voice, the unconscious mind. But I was on the phone to a lady in the States recently, 60-year-old lady, and she was on a 2-hour call that I had with her, because she may have turned into a client, maybe not. But I was speaking to her for the first couple of hours. She had some really significant breakthroughs, but I wanted to speak to her again. So I said, well, let's speak again in a week. And I gave her a task to do during the week. And that task was just to listen to that voice. Because one of the things which was going on with her is that she had an answer which was inside her head. And she actually put it like her unconscious mind was like this little girl. It's like this little girl inside her who's been kept quiet because the conscious mind had to take over. There was a lot of loss in her family, particularly when she was younger. She lost her daughter. And the conscious mind, the logical one, who had to step up and make sense of everything and get everything done and tick all the boxes on a day-to-day basis to keep her strong, which is part of the story that she's telling herself, became huge. So her conscious mind is now dictating her life, doing everything by that, where the poor unconscious mind is this little girl who's been kept in a box and she can't really say anything, right? So when she kind of made that revelation inside her head, she said that there's like the answer, or the secret answer that she needs, whatever that may be, is in the room where the unconscious mind is, but it's dark and she doesn't know how to turn the light switch on. And so the task that I gave her was to start listening the unconscious mind, whatever it comes up, just the ideas. Take a few minutes out of the day to sit down and listen. And that's all. Just ask a couple of questions, prompt the answer that comes, and just listen to it and write it down. And that's it. Because once you can start listening to the answer that's there, or the information which comes up, realize that that's the information that you need. That's the answer that you're looking for now. It doesn't have to make sense. Even your conscious mind will try and kick in and try and make sense of it. Sometimes it doesn't need to make sense just yet, because your unconscious mind knows what it's saying or what it's doing for you.
But you've got to trust that.
That's right. Yeah. And so you have to learn to listen and then trust what comes up, because trusting, here's the thing. It's not like you're trusting your unconscious mind. You're trusting yourself, right? Which is a big difference. That's a huge concept for a lot of people, particularly if they don't feel like they're worthy, or if they don't feel like they love themselves. Actually trusting your own intuition and trusting yourself and trusting that you have all the answers, and that no matter what happens, you're going to do what you need to do to get to whatever it is that you want to get to. That's a big thing for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And it takes those little steps, because if someone's never really done this before, or is in the habit of pushing down their unconscious mind and not listening to what comes up, first step is just to listen, even if for a minute or 2 minutes a day, just to stop and ask yourself a question. What is it my unconscious mind wants me to know right now? Simple question. Whatever answer comes up, just accept that answer for what it is. It doesn't have to make sense, right? That doesn't have to make sense just yet, because unconsciously it does make sense. Sometimes it takes time for your, conscious mind to kick in, or for you to have that aha moment like this is why we do it, because the more you can open up that dialogue, the more you can start to trust what comes up, the more you can start to trust yourself. And if you're trusting yourself, what does that mean? You can do no wrong, right?
Yeah.
Anything you can do, like if you're trusting yourself, trusting that you're making the right decisions, trusting your own intuition, trusting that no matter what happens, you're going to be doing good or the right thing, then you can never do anything wrong, right?
And I think something that just came up for me, like many years ago, more than 20 years ago, I know that I didn't trust myself, and I truly believe that had a lot to do with, you know, self-worth and all of that, and didn't trust that I would be making the right decision because I valued other people's opinions too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I was listening to something this morning, and he said something like, and I'm sure you would have heard this before, something about, why are we worrying about those that don't matter? What's the saying, Nathan? You'd know it. Those that don't matter.
Yeah, I know the saying you mean, but it's not coming
Yeah,
to mind.
yeah. So,
I
you
know, I
know,
know what you're trying to
it'll come up for us at midnight, I'm sure. You know, but it's really putting a lot of faith in people's opinions who really don't matter. Whereas if you listened to yourself and trusted yourself, you would more than likely make the right decision.
Yeah.
Mm.
So one thing I say to pretty much anyone I speak to, client or not, it's when they come up to me and say that they're concerned about what other people think or that other people will judge them or anything like that, which is a huge fear for a lot of people, fear of judgment
Mm.
and what would people think, what would people say, right?
Mm.
So one thing I always say or help them remind them of is like, can you do anything about what someone thinks, says, or does? Really?
Mm.
The answer is
Which can't.
no. Yeah, you can't do anything about what anyone thinks ever.
Mm.
You can try and manipulate, play, but you can't stop their thought process. That's like, it's impossible. You can't do anything about what people say. Unless they say something out of line and you call them on it, then they may not do it again later, but they may say it to someone else or whatever. You can't
Mm.
really do what people say. And same about their actions. You can't really stop people doing the things that they're going to do, right? Outside of
No.
extreme cases. But so if you can't do anything about what people think, say, or do, what can you do something about? Well, what you think and what you say and what you do, because that's ultimately the only person that matters in that context anyway. Because
Mm.
it doesn't matter if people judge you. It doesn't matter if people think poorly of you. It doesn't matter if people think amazing of you. It makes no difference. All right? It might give you a little bit of comfort if you know that you're getting that recognition from someone else. But even still, if you're only doing something for that recognition, then there could be a problem there, because the only recognition that you ever really need should be from yourself,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
if you can't really control what you think, but you can control what you do as a result of what you think, and you can also control what you think next. And so what I mean by that is, unconscious mind might bring a thought into mind, particularly if we've got a lot of conditioning or we've been through life in a particular way where we instantly judge someone. I know I do it myself. Like my mind will instantly judge someone for maybe the clothes or something like that from time to time. And if I stop myself and think, well, that's a bit silly. Where does that come from? Well, I know where it comes from because I look at my past and I look at my conditioning and what I've experienced in my life. And I know there was influences around me that kind of brought that on. I was like, okay, cool. So I don't like that. So I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm not going to give it any more energy. I'm going to let that go as something that it's just not something I want. So the thoughts will come, but what we do afterwards is totally in our control.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's a
So,
really powerful place to get, isn't it?
well, it is. It's the most powerful place to get.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because this is always talk about like with personal power, not in the rah rah type of motivational type of way, but personal power for me is just understanding who you are and
Yeah.
being awesome with it, like being good with it, loving
Mm.
yourself despite anything else, because nothing else really matters except for the love that you have for yourself, which comes when you start to understand yourself in a much more deeper and more profound way.
Mm. Yeah. So when you are meditating and you're in stillness, how would you describe the feeling that you would get? I mean, the feeling for me is just a feeling of peace. Like it's a stillness, it's meditating and just feeling like, and I feel very aligned.
Yeah. So The way I describe it, and for me, it's not just in meditation either, because I don't meditate that much. It's not that I'm out of practice, but I do it sometimes. But for me, it's an ongoing feeling like that. So, and I think that's the state to get into. If there's good and there's bad, but good and bad are the things which are just labeled that way, right? You know, when things are bad or we focus on the negative, we feel a particular way. When things are good, we feel a particular way. I think the feeling is that peace, but things are neither good nor bad. They simply are, right? And yeah, there's some things which we can look at and like, that's really not like, that's not good, or that is bad, and that's understandable. And there's things that people do that which we don't like. But I think when you're at the place inside yourself where no matter what it is, good or bad, it doesn't matter. That's the peace. That's the silence and stillness, because that means that you're connected and you're flowing and that you're just being you. Even when things are good, it means, okay, if I'm making something so good, then that means that something has to be bad as part of the equilibrium. It needs to kind of balance it out, which means if I'm making something really good, okay, that's fine. But that means that there has to be something that counters that as well. And so that middle bit, when none of that matters and you're just being you, like you're just being, that is what I would describe it as. That's how I tend to be most of the time with some of the work that I'm doing on myself. But I think that's the place to get to, because when you're just still and you're just being, then things just happen. Like you just do what you need to do without any of the noise and the stuff which is around you.
Yeah. And I think the analogy, and I have used this also for a very long time now, is where as much as you possibly can, removing right, wrong, good, bad means that we don't have that emotional attachment to it. You know, like today's a really bad day or today's a good day, but then you're going to have a bad day. You know, it's raining, that makes it a bad day. And when you remove that, you have that balance. And one of the ways that I was taught to do this is by Jim Rohn, if you remove that it's good, bad, right or wrong, and you just simply find it interesting. And that has been so powerful to some of my clients, of just going, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that's right. That's actually a really good way to look at it. I like to put it as, you know, letting go of the outcome, because I'm working with a client at the moment. He's in the US starting up a business. He hasn't really done like sales as such before. So he's got this big stigma about sales. And so, and particularly like making cold calls or sending out emails, things like that, which is what he's doing. And so one of his things that I'm helping with is just to let go of the outcome. And to do that, it's like, well, when you let go of the outcome, then the only result is to just have the call. Right? Yeah. It doesn't have to turn into a sale, because even what he's doing, it's like coaching. We're not selling it straight away. It's not a thing that needs to be sold. The only question is, does someone want to continue to work with me? But when it comes to something like that, it's like, no, don't just let go of the outcome. So it doesn't matter what happens. The point is you have the call. The call is the experience. The experience helps you get better. And if you're getting better, then the more calls you have later on means the better result you're going to get. But you're not concerned about that. You're just focused on, I'm just going to have a call. That's it. Yeah. I'm just going to send an email. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, from a recovering control freak, that was a really interesting place. You know, that was a real paradigm shift for me, is to let go of the outcome. And specifically last year, that was a big thing for me. Is, you know, that's one of the reasons why I went on the walk, is to just trust, really go within and listen to my intuition, and not like I'm just walking and I let go of the outcome, you know, whereas I'd have to have everything planned, everything lined up, you know, so.
Yeah. Do you know, it's really interesting. I was having a call with someone recently, actually. This is a separate person. And the biggest realization he had was to stop trying. Now, it was very simple. Like, I had a 2-hour call with him to start off with. And once again, I wanted to speak to him the next week just to see how he went. And we're having another call for about an hour to an hour and a half. And his biggest insight or realization he had came towards the end of the second call, when I noticed a pattern in what he was doing. And I see this happening with a lot of people, particularly when they're starting out in personal development or as an entrepreneur, because they like, to be successful, you have to do this, to be successful, you have to wake up at 5:30, you have to meditate, you have to journal, you have to do all these things, right? And it gets exhausting even just thinking about it. And so he was doing that, but the conflict was when it doesn't happen, or he felt like he's pushing himself and there was something not quite right. And so I said, I don't have the pen here, but I gave him a trick with him. Like I said, put your hand out there and put your pen on your hand. It's like, okay. I said, now what I want you to do is try and pick up the pen with your other hand.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. So he picked it up. I said, so you didn't try, you did it. What you need to do now, what your problem is now is you're trying too much. You need to do. And he's just like, oh, for like 5-10 minutes, his head was exploding because he realized that he was trying too much. Because when we try, that's what we do. We just try. We don't actually do anything. So his thing was he was trying to be successful. He's a coach as well. He was trying to be successful, right? And so because he was trying to be successful, he was doing what everyone tells you need to do if you want to be successful. He was trying to meditate every day, trying to do his journaling every day, right? All these type of things. He was trying to become successful. And then what he realized was he has to stop trying and just do. He has to just become successful. And what happens after that is that he became centered and everything just made sense. And then he's like, right, what I need to do is just do the meditation with no outcome. The sole purpose is not to meditate because I want to be successful. The sole purpose is I'm meditating because I want to meditate. I'm journaling because I want to journal. I'm starting a business because I want to start a business, not to become rich and successful or anything like that. Because once you start focusing on that too much, even though it's good to have goals, but when you're focusing on that too much, you forget about the now and what you need to do now. And the only thing to do now is be and just do the things that you want to do.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you is that when you are in your conscious mind, you're thinking about all the things that people are telling you to do, all the things, the way this is how you're going to be successful. But when you're in your unconscious mind, you're doing what you think is right for you, like what is coming. So, because I used to be that person, all successful people get up at 5 a.m. Well, I got to the point where I realized I'm not a 5 a.m. girl. I mean, I am actually now, but I wasn't then. I'm not a 4 a.m. person and I never will be. But, and for me, I meditate at night because it turns my chatter off. And it's the only thing that can turn my chatter off. So I do it at night because that's what I need to do for me. Yeah.
So this is my gripe with the personal development industry, really. The more I think about it, the more I'm trying to come to terms with it, because it is a gripe, because I was the same. I was like, well, got to get up at 5:30, got to do this, I've got to meditate, I've got to walk, I've got to be journaling every single day, I've got to be reviewing my day every single day. And even just talking about it, like that's like I'm getting flustered. Like, this is a lot of work to do that. Like, in fairness, you're going to have to do a lot of the things, or you're going to have to change a few things. But everyone tells you about that these are the things that you have to do, right? Sorry, there's loud noise out. So these are the things that you have to do. But what I realize now is that you have to do what works for you. So getting up at 5:30 in the morning, that doesn't work if you're going to bed at 2, right? No. Or it doesn't work if you're going to bed at midnight or anything like that. And so simplicity and doing things which work for you is how to, I guess, create your success or create the thing that you want, and stop listening to what everyone else tells you. Now, this is where I kind of get to conflict, because that's my gripe, because a lot of that stuff is good information and it will help, but I think the way it's marketed as something that you have to buy right now, like you have to learn how to do this now, my program will do it, my coaching will do it, my course will do it, whatever it is, that's where that's what they're selling to you. And even though it's good, and it works, it's like, that's not quite right, But on the other side, I'm thinking, well, you have to start here with this stuff to get to a point where you realize that none of that matters, right? What matters is what works for you, and trusting yourself, which meaning if you're going to be getting up at 5:30, but you're going to bed at midnight, 1 o'clock, are you listening to your intuition that's saying, go to freaking bed, you need some sleep, you need some rest, or don't have that coffee, you need to have some like an apple or something instead, right? And so that's my thing. It's like, I know you have to go from here to get to here to realize that none of that stuff really matters anymore. It's like almost like an awareness, but taking it back to your intuition will guide you on the things that you want to do, and particularly things like sleep, eating right, those type of things. I always use the analogy of someone of not listening to their unconscious mind or their intuition. It's like, I know I shouldn't have this chocolate bar, right? I know I shouldn't be eating this. This is unhealthy. Why am I eating this chocolate bar? I know I shouldn't be. That's someone who's just not listening to their intuition, right? They're just
Yeah.
choosing not to go for it.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've got a client and we've been working together now for about 4 weeks. And since we've been working together and he's become more mindful, especially eating mindfully, he hasn't touched the food that he was craving, although he knew it was bad for him. He hasn't even had the desire, which has
Yeah.
been, totally amazing, for just 4 short weeks.
Yeah, see, and it's incredible, and it's testament that you can do it, right?
Yeah.
You've already got it inside you. A little bit of guidance will always help, but if you've got that relationship with yourself already, you'll listen to what you need to do because it's always going to be guiding you. It's always telling you what you should and shouldn't be doing because it knows how to look after you. Part of your unconscious mind knows how to create perfect human health inside you, in every part of you, every organ, every cell. And so
That's
when
a
you listen,
really, say that again, Nathan. Say that again.
so
That,
I'll say it in a little bit, in a bit of a better way. So your unconscious mind has a blueprint of perfect human health,
yeah,
right? Because it knows this is not just you. You're not the very first human being. It's got centuries upon centuries of human history in like passed down through the ages to form this you as a human being, because we're all connected like that. And so it knows how to heal you. It knows how to look after you. Your unconscious mind keeps you alive, right? That's one of its prime directives, is to keep you alive and keep you healthy.
yeah,
Because if you had to consciously think about breathing or about pumping blood through your body or anything like that, you couldn't do it. Or you couldn't do anything else in life because you'd be like, I have to breathe now, I have to breathe out now, I have to pump my blood. How do I do that? All this stuff is happening unconsciously. We don't have to think about it. That's your
yeah,
unconscious mind. And so when we say it knows how to look after you, it does, and it'll guide you towards that. We all know we need to eat vegetables and salads and good food and stay away from the crap processed food that's out there, but we still eat it, right? We still don't listen to it. Why? Because most people don't have that relationship. They're not thinking about that. They're not really giving it any power or warrant, because they're just like, yeah, I know that. I'll just eat what I want to eat anyway, because that's what I want to do.
yeah. Look, and I obviously I have younger children, not children, they're adults, and they want to go through drive-through, and they'll often say, "Mum, do you want anything?" And the answer is the same every time: "No, I don't,"
Yeah.
because I know what my body needs, and I know what is right, and I also know too, you have to work harder after 50.
That's right.
Because my body
Yeah,
says so.
yeah, that's right.
So, yeah, and so everything that you're saying again really comes back to trust, really trusting yourself. And I think
Yeah,
we can lose that at times.
yeah. It is definitely trusting yourself, and part of the way to do it is just to realize that it's serving a purpose. That it comes up. I'll share a couple of things with you in regards to it, because I think it'll help. So, you've done NLP training, so there's the prime directives of the unconscious mind, and
Mm.
so what I think would be a good idea for most people to understand is that there are prime directives of the unconscious mind. Like, it's actually serving purpose. I'm not going to go through all 22 or something as it is, but there's a couple which are really important, particularly, and it ties in nicely to what we've spoken about before with beliefs and things like that. Because one thing that we will happen, or we'll notice will happen, is that sometimes like a memory or something will pop up into your mind for whatever reason, and it will be really uncomfortable, or there'll be a lot of negative emotion on it or something like that. And now I bring that example up because when that happens, most people tend to just push it back down because it is uncomfortable. But I
Mm.
wanted to share why that actually happens, because I think it's important. Because when you can understand these things, then you can understand more about what your unconscious is actually doing for you. And so in a situation like that, first of all, your unconscious mind is very symbolic, okay, very symbolic. So it looks around the world and sees things, and it will see something which will be like a symbol to it, and it knows what that is, or it'll make sense of it. But on top of that, it also makes connections very quickly. So it'll connect what it sees there with a few things, right? So that is connected to this, which connected to this. So this is all in the mind, which will connect us to a memory, and then the memory will suddenly pop up, right? And so
Mm.
your unconscious mind is doing this, but it represses a lot of its memories to begin with, because it wants to keep you safe. And at the time when it knows that you're ready to be able to process and learn what you need to learn from it in order to let go of a particular memory, then it'll just present it to you because it knows. And so that's what happens. We might be in the kitchen one day washing our dishes, and then suddenly a memory of something way, way, way back in the past comes into mind out of nowhere with
Yeah.
this anger, or fear, or sadness attached to it. And we're like, whoa, what is that? Whew, I don't want to deal with that. So we push it back down, right? Because what's happened is your unconscious mind has made connections based on something that you're doing or a thought process that you're already going through. But what it's actually doing is presenting the memories to you for some type of resolution so you can let go of the emotion and so you can make sense of it. That's what it's doing. And so if we can take a moment to stop when that comes up and realize, all right, this is my unconscious trying to communicate with me and letting me know that there's something here I need to learn, we can stop and think, right, what am I feeling right now? What do I need to learn from this? Because once you learn what you need to learn, you can let that go, and then it just becomes a memory, not a memory which is charged with a negative emotion. And so I share that with you because this is your unconscious communicating with you. And when you can understand that when that happens, this is for a good reason. It's not to make you uncomfortable or anything like that. Just realize that it's your unconscious mind trying to speak to you and let you know that there's something here you need to learn. Then you can take that moment to actually communicate back and be like, right, this is what I need to learn. Thank you so much. And that's how you start to develop the relationship with you and start to trust yourself and trust what comes up is what you need at that particular moment, because it knows what you can process and what you can't.
So what's going to happen when that comes up and you're suppressing it?
Mm-hmm.
Another time it comes up and then you're suppressing it. So what's going to happen?
Well, I think everyone knows the answer to that, right? Have you ever heard of going postal? So that's what happens, right? So that's why when we say terms like people cracked or they have a nervous breakdown or something like that. Now, there could be many different factors going on, but that tends to be what happens. So your unconscious mind is trying to bring this to you, brings it up, and there's like anger attached to it. You push it down, suppressed, suppressed, suppressed. We all know what happens with suppressed emotions. They come out with force, huge, massive force. And that's when someone maybe says something to someone that they shouldn't say. They explode on someone, they hit someone, they do something which is almost out of character, but it becomes too unbearable. Like there could be a few triggers which just bring up all of that at once, and it comes out because it has to happen. Like a resolution has to happen on a particular memory because it needs to, and you need to be complete, you need to be whole. And we're not supposed to be carrying around all this baggage from the past, these negative emotions from the past, all these type of limiting beliefs. That's just all part of conditioning and things that we've been through. So it needs to happen for us to be complete and whole and have that level of peace. So we're just being, right? Because that's what we're here to do. We're here to just be. And so when we press it too many times, it comes up in a really bad way most of the time, or in a way which is self-destructive. You know, it may not be like an explosion, it could be an implosion. And we go deep, deep down inside ourselves, or we get depressed, we get anxious, or we just don't do anything and we just become very unhappy. Why? Because we're not communicating with ourselves. We're not trusting ourselves. We're not doing those little things that we need to do just to make us whole and just make us nice and complete.
Yeah, where I get a bit excited, like excited isn't the right word, but when something comes up for me, I go, oh, more work to do.
Yeah.
It's just like a reminder. It's like, I guess, a reminder letter in the post. You've got more work to do.
I like the term excited. I think it should, because it brings a really positive aspect to it. It may be uncomfortable or may be hard to handle. It might be like charged with some type of belief which you've been carrying around for years. But if you learn what you need to learn, just might let it go. And I think that's exciting. If you don't even have to do anything except ask yourself a couple of questions, or ask, what do I need to learn from this? What is it I need to let go? And what can I do differently? That is exciting, because once it's gone, what does that mean? You don't have that anymore. It's disappeared. Now you don't have to worry about that anymore. You can just focus on the things that you want instead.
Yeah, you've done the work. You know,
right.
And that's something to, you're right. That's something to be excited about.
Yeah, I think so. Like whatever works for you. I'm just saying, I think exciting is good.
Oh, wow. So if you were going to, again, I love how at the end of these, I say, what would you tell the listeners? What's some action that they could take after listening to this? Let's say they've got an extra 10 minutes and they're going to listen to this. What would you advise them to do?
So first of all, take that 10 minutes. Like allow yourself to have that 10 minutes, because if you feel like you got 10 minutes, that's your unconscious mind saying, you've got 10 minutes. Let's
Yeah.
work some stuff out. And so during that time, it's very simple. I always like the question, what is it that my unconscious mind needs me to know? Or what is it my unconscious mind needs me to work out? Or you can even just sound like a crazy person, right? And just say, I use the word crazy person. I don't think there are crazy people. But you can use words, things like, right, what do I need to know right now? Because you are talking to yourself anyway. This is where a lot of people struggle. That lady in the States, she struggled with that, because when I gave her that task and spoke to her about it, she's like, I felt weird because I'm speaking to myself. It feels like I might be a bit crazy. I'm like, what is weird? Because you are speaking to yourself, but that's where your answers are, right? That's how it is. It is weird. And so very simple, just ask, what do I need to know? Or what do I need to resolve right now? Is there anything I need to resolve? And just see what answers come up, just to play. Because the quality of the questions that you ask yourself will determine what comes up as well. And so bad questions like, why am I bad at this? Or why do I always make mistakes aren't good, because your unconscious mind actually wants to answer that as well. So you have to kind of guide it in a way that's going to serve you. So what do I need resolution on right now? Or how is it that I feel so angry sometimes? What do I need to know about that? Or where does that come from? And just listen to the answer that comes up. Sometimes the answer might be crazy. Like it might seem crazy. I might say like, well, it came up when you were age 1. You're like, age 1? How does that work? It's your conscious mind kicking in going, well, yeah, we've got to make sense of this. No, you can't really make sense of that. What you need to do is just listen to the answer that comes up and allow the answers to come, right? If someone finds himself saying, I don't know how to do this, or there's nothing coming up, it's because there's a blockage there and they're not allowing the answers to come up. So I'd say just take a breath and just relax and just ask the questions and allow the answers to come up. And it doesn't have to make sense. Just allow them to come up, because that's the answer that you need right now.
Yeah. So and trust.
And trust. Yeah, absolutely. Trust what comes up.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you want to add to this? I actually cannot believe that we've been talking for nearly an hour on this. This is just awesome. It feels like 10 minutes.
I know. I got a feeling I put you in a trance a couple of times. Just allowing it all to come in. There is so much I want to talk about this, but I think it can be, it's a lot to take in, particularly when you're new to the subject as well. But the main thing I would like to just say to anyone is just notice that you have a conscious and you have an unconscious mind, and it's all part of you. They both serve a purpose. They're both here to make you complete and whole. And the more you can have that dialogue with it, the more you can literally talk to yourself and just develop that relationship, the easier life becomes for you, because you start to become knowing and comfortable with who you are, because that's what's most important. Nothing else really matters except knowing who you are, being good with who you are, and just doing what it is that you need to do.
Yeah. And, you know, when you talk, I know that I do often have those conversations with myself, and, you know, to remind myself, you know, you've got this, and you are doing. One of my sayings that gets me through, it's actually a question I've asked myself for a very long time now. And I have to be honest when I ask myself this question. And that is, am I doing the best that I can with the resources I have at the time?
Yeah.
And I always made a promise to myself to be honest. And if I'm not, I've got to say, well, no, you're not. All right, what do I need to do to fix this? And I think it's important to say, like, I don't beat myself up. I don't say, oh, see, you didn't do your best. It's okay, well, what do I need to do now? So it's, again, another question. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. I think what you said is great in regards to honesty, because you have to be honest with yourself with this, because we know what's right and wrong, like in general. Someone knows what the right thing to do is. Someone knows what the wrong thing to do is. Someone knows when they're being true to themselves, when they are speaking their mind, when they're being themselves, and they know when they're doing things which aren't like that, right? Particularly when it comes to like keeping my mouth closed when I'm in a group setting, or I don't want to say the wrong thing, or I don't want to upset people, which goes against you, because it doesn't matter what people think, right? And so we all know what the right and wrong thing is. We all know when we're not doing the right thing by ourselves as well. And so being completely honest and being able to accept that honesty as well is very important in this type of work. Because once you're honest with yourself, once you're being really, really honest with yourself, then you can actually find out what the real problems are, what's actually going on, so you can figure out solutions to start doing better things, so they're not problems anymore.
Yeah, and one of the things that might be nice to say to yourself as a listener is like, um, being honest, but be kind to yourself, right? You don't have to beat yourself up. You might not have got it right, but still be kind to yourself. And I can't remember who it was that said it, but like, Jesus, if you wouldn't speak to a stranger the way you're talking to yourself, how can you talk to yourself like that?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Yeah, that dialogue to yourself is so important. So important. You have to realize that you are important and you're an amazing human being, no matter who you are or where you are, what you're doing. That awesomeness is inside you. And so you have to understand that. It's like, yeah, be kind to yourself. Be honest in the way where it's like, all right, I messed up. All right, I got things I need to work on. All right, there's things in the past which I'm not happy about, but it is what it is. I'm here now and I want to sort it out. And so you can be kind to yourself and like, cool, because I care about me and I want to make sure that I'm better, I'm going to work this stuff out no matter how much it hurts. All right. But I'm on the path to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. So those of you who are listening, Nathan has said, you must be kind to yourself.
Got to do it, as I said.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Nathan, once again. It's been awesome.
Thank you, Donna. It's always a pleasure.
And we've got one more coming up. So we've got a 5th episode. So stay tuned for that one, which I think will be in a few days' time.
Yeah, perfect. I'm looking forward to that one too, as always.